Hi, I'm Dr. Dawson, and I've been a pediatrician in Austin for more than 35 years and been fortunate to get to practice in pretty much the same place for all those years. And because of that, I've had hundreds of young patients who have grown up in the practice and been there for 18 years, and then they graduate from high school and they come in for their last appointment with a pediatrician. And it seems appropriate that at that point I should have perhaps some advice for them for the next decade or so, because most folks in their 20s don't really develop a relationship with another doctor during that time. And so over my career, I've developed 5 rules that I think will help you make it to your 30s. And the problem with young people in their 20s are 2 things. One, there's that feeling of invincibility, and it's totally natural. It's natural because, every year you're bigger and faster and stronger than you were the year before. We think it'll go on forever. It takes somewhere maybe in our late 30s where all of a sudden it starts taking longer for things to heal, that we start to realize that this body's not really going to last forever. So the invincibility is natural. The second thing is this is a period of increasing independence, and part of independence is an increased amount of risk-taking behavior. Boys are probably worse than girls, but girls are bad enough. But risk-taking behavior really comes into 2 categories. There's risk-taking behavior that might get you into trouble. An example of that would be, I had a couple of buddies in college. For the sake of this video, we'll say their names were Smith and Ford because they were. But they were going to be roommates, and they decided that if they stole the street corner on the sign from the corner of Smith and Ford Street, it would be a sign of their eternal bonding and important for reasons that maybe we can't all understand. Now, the problem with the corner of Smith and Ford Street is sometimes that's across from the police station, and you may end up spending the night in jail. So if you take those kind of decisions, I may not feel like it's a great plan. I certainly don't recommend that you break the law, but I'm going to be okay with you as long as death or maiming wasn't a possibility. It's only a matter of getting in trouble. Your pediatrician's going to be okay with that. On the other hand, if death or maiming is a possibility, God gave you a brain. And so if you're going to make risk-taking behavior decisions, if death or maiming is a possibility, you have to use that brain and just say no. So to help you make it a little easier, instead of saying I want you to be more or less kind of good for the next decade, I've made 5 rules that pretty much will 99% guarantee you that you get to be 30. So the first rule is on a lot of folks' list, and that is you cannot get in the car with someone who should not be driving. Whether it's you who shouldn't be driving or whether it's the other person, you cannot do that. I have to admit that present generations are really better about that than my generation was. In my generation, almost everyone lost a close friend and an acquaintance due to this. Presently, folks are better about having designated drivers, having folks that they hire for rides to go home. All those things have improved, but it is just very difficult in the heat of the situation to say no. I know from personal experience, one of my most mature friends that I have, a man named Bob Blades, we were both adults, we were married, we had children, and we went to an out-of-state wedding of one of our buddies. And after the bachelor party, because we didn't want to create a big scene, we allowed the groom-to-be to drive us a few blocks home to our hotel. And when we got out of the car, we looked at each other, and both of us were, like I say, 2 of the most mature people we knew. And we said, we have to figure out how to help our children not make potentially life-threatening decisions like this, since even we weren't able to be strong enough to do it. So you have to have a plan in advance to keep it from happening. So that's number 1. Number 2 has to do with anything that has to do with water at night. And I've had some patients that didn't understand why they couldn't drink water at night. I'm not talking about drinking water. I'm talking about lakes and rivers and pools. Anything that has to do with water at night, I want a little bell to go off in the back of your head that says, Dr. Dawson said this is one of those potentially death or maiming situations. So if there's water at night, you just have to avoid it. The third rule involves how much alcohol is okay to drink. Here again, this was simpler back when I was a young person. In my day, folks mainly just drank beer. And if one of your buddies drank too much beer and he passed out, he might have room in his stomach for a couple of more beers, but that wasn't enough to hurt him, and he would sleep it off, and the next morning he was okay. Now that folks drink more hard liquor, and especially shots, and you see movies where they act like you can drink as many shots for your birthday age, that can happen. And so what happens, those folks pass out. And then as they're laying there, they've got 7 or 8 shots still in their stomach. Their stomach doesn't realize they're passed out. Your stomach keeps absorbing that alcohol, and they die of alcohol poisoning while they're asleep. So to protect my practice, I did some calculations. I've come up with a number, and you cannot drink more than 5 shots. I'm not recommending 5 shots. I've never drunk 5 shots personally. And I know from experience that shots 1, 2, and 3 make you a little bit more likely to start breaking some of the other rules. So I'm not advocating that. But I'm saying under no circumstance, if you're on a farm where there's no cars to drive and there's no water, or darkness at night or whatever, you still can never have more than 5 shots. It may also be beneficial if you're ever in a group that's trying to push you to drink more than 5 shots. You can honestly tell them that for reasons you don't fully understand, your doctor told you that for medical reasons, you cannot drink more than 5 shots. And it would be a pretty brazen upperclassman that would push you to do something your doctor said you couldn't do. So under no circumstances should you ever drink more than 5 shots. The fourth rule is a little bit different. May not be purely death or maiming, but anytime you have a child for the rest of your life, I consider that a significant enough change in your life to almost be considered maiming. The rule is anything you can do, I am not your mother, anything you can do with another person with your clothes on is okay with me. I have on good report that there's lots of fun things you can do with your clothes on. If you want to know more on that, I'm going to make another video a little later on about some of those issues. But as a doctor, I can tell you, you get to see a million examples of folks where they went past having their clothes on, and then the chances of pregnancy and venereal disease goes through the roof. So if you're going to get past having your clothes on, you better have a really, really good plan of how to avoid those other things. So anything you can do with your clothes on, it's okay with your pediatrician. Unfortunately, the fifth rule I added later. I used to just have 4 rules, but the fifth issue probably took more of my ex-patients in their 20s than all the other things combined. And so the fifth rule is you have to have someone in this world that you can trust completely, that you could tell anything to at any time without fear of being judged. And this person should be wiser, perhaps older, but you need to have someone you could tell anything to. And the rule is you never make a lifelong decision by yourself in the dark. Now, sometimes it's dark at 2 o'clock in the morning, and so that counts as dark. But also as you go through life, there's kind of light times and there's dark times. We never make a lifelong decision by ourselves in the dark. And if you'll do those 5 things, I can guarantee you that accounts for 99% of the terrible things that have happened to folks since they've left the practice. And if you can do those things, I think that'll help. So best of luck to you.